I'm saying.
You support terrorism.
I'm not some.
You
Go.
support
I'm just
killing
working here.
children.
You kill children, not me. Go.
I didn't kill children.
Okay, what I see
You
here?
know why? If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
Go.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that before. This is why no one believes that Israel will maintain the ceasefire. This is why no one thinks that they will honor the truce. You know, they just reached an agreement for, I think, 4 days of a truce, and everyone expects them to break it because they can't help themselves. They're just so aggressive. They're so full of spite and anger and bitterness and a sense of their own supremacy that they think that they can do anything. Because, like, look at that man. You know, there's like a truce. There's an unspoken truce. There's an unspoken treaty of peace between people in society, between all members of society. There's like a civil understanding of how you're supposed to behave with other people. And this man can't maintain that truce. And why? Look at what he was saying. He was saying things. It's so inhuman what he's saying that it's hard to believe that he believes what he's saying. He's saying it to be hateful. He's saying it to be hurtful. And he's saying it because he can. He's saying it because he knows he has the upper hand and he has what he believes to be the support of the state behind him. So he can say this thing about killing 4,000 Palestinian children is not enough. I don't know if he even really believes that. I don't know if he really feels that inhuman. But it's just a way of asserting his supremacy because I can say that to you. You're an Arab in America. You're an Arab in the West. You're a Muslim in the West. And I can say that to you and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm right because I can get away with it. And I'm just sticking it in your face. How much humiliation you must take because you're in an inferior status with regards vis-a-vis power. The power, he's not the source of the power. The power is the source of his power is the support that he believes the state will unconditionally always offer to Israel and to Zionism and to Zionists. So that's the source of his sense of supremacy, his sense of superiority that he thinks allows him or gives him the license to talk that way and to be aggressive and to be provocative and to be hostile and to try to provoke a reaction. And the same thing, this is on a small scale, the exact same thing that we all expect from Israel. And for the same reason. You don't know how to behave properly. You don't know how to respect normal, decent human interaction, relationships. The same way that that man can't honor the truce of the street that everyone has to follow, that everyone has to abide by, that everyone agrees to abide by, so that we can all be safe and go about our lives in a normal way. He can't honor that. He can't maintain that sort of ceasefire that we all have to maintain in society. He can't do that even on the street level because he thinks that he's got the backing of the state. He thinks he has the backing of power. So he can say what he wants to say. So we expect the same thing from Israel. We expect them to violate the truce. And of course, when they violate the truce, they will put that back on the Palestinians. They'll put it back on the Gazans and say that they did it because you provoked them to the point where they had to retaliate. But you see how the Arabs are behaving now, how the Muslims are behaving now, is just like that brother in the halal court. Trying to be humane, trying to be civil, trying to be decent, trying to elevate the human interaction and trying to elevate the response to conflict. And this is something that people don't, in the West, don't understand. And people who've been indoctrinated by the West don't understand because they think, they have internalized in their own minds this idea that unless you're bringing violence into a conflict, you're bringing nothing. Words don't count. Diplomacy doesn't count. If you're not responding in kind, then you're doing nothing. They think that the only response to conflict is escalation. That's a Western mindset. They think that the only proper response or the only respectable response, the only honorable response to conflict and violence is escalation of conflict and violence. More aggression. To respond with aggression with an even greater level of violence. That's the only thing that they understand. But the Arab world and the Muslim world, and in fact the entire global South, are showing the West, showing obviously the Zionists, but showing the West overall, the West in general, how to be civilized, how to be mature human beings, how to be decent, how to take a wise, restrained, responsible, mature approach to conflict. Because we know that we're dealing with people who are not all there. We know we're dealing with people who have the insanity of power, the insanity of the license that is given to them by power, and it's bringing out the worst in them. So when the center of power moves to the global South, moves to the Arab and Muslim world, when the center of power leaves the West, the way that power operates is going to change, because it's moving from the uncivilized, savage part of the world to the civilized, sophisticated, mature, and more humane part of the world. And so you'll see the exercise of power will be conducted very differently. It will be conducted in a more humane and a civilized manner. And that's what the Arab and the Muslim world are showing the entire world today. As much as they're trying to provoke the Muslims into violence, as much as they're trying to provoke the Muslims into conflict, into fighting according to your rules, into adopting your way of handling conflict, into adopting your approach, instead of doing that, the Muslims are taking the Islamic approach, the approach of peace, the approach of maturity, the approach of trying to de-escalate, the approach of trying to reach a resolution with the minimum damage, trying to contain the conflict and trying to diffuse the conflict as much as possible. What we're concerned about is peace. What we're concerned about is an end to the violence. And what we're concerned about is a long-term resolution that will ensure that the violence will be resolved for good. You see, this is why, I'll point out here, we know, and the Jews know, that among Bani Israel, there have always been righteous people. We know that there have always been, and there still are, righteous Jews, righteous Bani Israel. Righteous people from Bani Israel have always existed. So have wicked people. And historically, what their problem has been is that the wicked people outnumber the righteous people. And the righteous people don't have the power, or anyway, they're unsuccessful. The righteous segment of Bani Israel has never been able to keep their wicked in check. When the wicked emerge from the Bani Israel, they overcome the righteous. And the righteous don't know what to do in response to the wicked among them, among their own people. They don't know what to do. To the point that in history, you had a time when the righteous among Bani Israel would call out the sins and the disobedience of the wicked among the Bani Israel. They would be ignored. They would be defied until the point was that they had to build a wall between those who were the righteous and those who were the wicked, so that at least what the righteous could do was to disassociate themselves and disavow the wicked from among them. But they were never able to put them in check. They were never able to correct them. They were never able to make them behave properly. The only thing that ever was able to make the wicked from Bani Israel behave properly was either a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or a prophet. He would send a prophet or he would send a punishment. And they would follow the prophet for some period of time, and then the wicked would emerge and the righteous would be incapable of putting them in check, and then the punishment would come. And then hopefully after that another prophet would come for the righteous. So the righteous among the Bani Israel have never been able to keep the wicked among Bani Israel in check. Now this is different from the Muslims. The Muslims have righteous people and the Muslims have wicked people. We have wicked people amongst us too. But the difference is that our righteous people have always been able to keep our wicked people in check. And we can keep your wicked people in check as well. And that's what we'll do. And you know that that's in fact even our role with regards to Bani Israel. The rabbis and the scholars among Bani Israel know that that's the role of Bani Ismail. to help keep wickedness in check and to establish justice and righteousness. So we can keep our wicked in check and we can keep your wicked in check. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's exactly what the Arabs and the Muslims are trying to do right now with Zionists through their diplomacy, through their diplomatic measures. Now, some people, like I said, some people in the West are going to say, oh, this is just talk. Talk is nothing. Talk is nothing when bombs are falling. You're supposed to rally your armies. You're supposed to invade Israel because that's what you would do. Because that's the only method you know for dealing with conflict. Because it's your reflex, knee-jerk response to just fight, to just be violent, because you're uncivilized and you're barbaric and you've never developed, you've never evolved. But our understanding and our approach is to do everything possible to avoid escalation of violence, to avoid escalation of conflict. So you're seeing play out right now an approach that is an Islamic approach and that completely obliterates all of the myths that you've created, the slanderous myths that you've created about Islam spreading by the sword and about how violent Islam is. You can see with your own eyes right now who's the violent one and who's the one who's suing for peace. Who's the one who's aggressive and hostile and vicious in their violence? And who's the one who feels entitled to be violent? Who's the one who feels absolutely justified and entitled to attack anyone? Who's the one who feels now? You can see, the world can see with their own eyes who's on the side of peace and who's on the side of war. Who's voting consistently against ceasefire? Who's voting consistently against peace? Who's voting consistently against the resolution to the conflict? And who's the one who's always trying to make it move forward? And who's the one who's always suing for peace? Who's the one who's always trying to get a ceasefire? Who's the one who's trying to push for humanitarian assistance? Who's trying to push for a long-term solution? So you can see that lie that you've been telling all these years about how violent Islam is. You can see for yourself right now who's violent and who's peaceful. Who's interested in escalating violence and who's interested in de-escalating violence and containing violence and bringing about peace. You can see this man and this incident in New York. That's another interesting point. This man is in New York, and one of the things that he's trying to use to threaten that brother in the halal cart is questioning his right to be there. Questioning his right to be there. So we're not allowed to be anywhere. Arabs aren't allowed to be in Arab land. Muslims aren't allowed to be in Muslim land. They have to be driven out because that's your land too, right? And we're not allowed to be in the United States too either, apparently, because I guess that's also your country too, and we're not supposed to be there. Which I'm asking myself, why are you there? If you're so pro-Israeli and undoubtedly you have Israeli citizenship, what are you doing in New York and walking around that country like it's yours? When you also have another country that you say is yours, and that you say that the reason why you need to have that country and why that country needs to be yours is because you wouldn't be safe in New York. But you're strutting around in New York like you own it, like it's your grandfather's street, and telling other people whether or not they have a right to be there or not. So you think that everywhere you go is your land. That's why I'm telling you, this is a Western colonialist, this is a Western imperialist conflict. Because it's the same mentality, it's the same mindset. Every place is mine. And you have to justify your right to be even in your own home. Because actually your own home belongs to me too. Everything is mine. That's the Western mindset. So I'm wondering why he's even in New York. If he's a Zionist, then he should believe that it's not even safe for him to even set foot in a non-Jewish country. He shouldn't feel safe. Because that's the whole justification for saying that you need a Jewish homeland. That you're not safe anywhere else because the whole world is so anti-Semitic that you can't even set foot outside of the undeclared borders of Israel because it's not safe for you. But here you are strutting around New York like you own it and questioning whether or not other people have a right to be there. This is why nobody expects you to maintain the ceasefire, because you feel entitled and you feel that you can operate with complete impunity because you haven't yet completely understood how the world is changing and how the very people that you hate and the very people that you're trying to destroy and the very people that you feel supreme and supremacist over, those very people are changing the world and moving the earth under your feet.